Good afternoon and welcome to today's Ad Week webinar, where we will be looking at using TikTok to maximize your impact around Paris 2024 and the Summer Games, and really with advice on how to do that around so many of the tentpole events that are occurring these days. And our webinar today is being sponsored by Foursquare. I'm Stuart File, Vice President of Branded Content at Adweek, and I am going to be your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, I just want to take a few minutes here, make sure everyone knows what to expect from our webinar today and is familiar with the features of our webinar platform. Our presentation should go somewhere in the 35-minute range. Afterwards, we are going to have plenty of time for audience Q&A. So I want to welcome the audience. If at any point during the presentation today, you have a question for our speakers, and I'm sure there are going to be plenty of them, just use the question tool that you should see there on probably right underneath where you're seeing me on your screen. So use that to submit your questions, and we're going to get to as many audience questions as we can following our live presentation. It's not too late to invite your colleagues to come and join us today as well. And we'd love it if they would. So if you're interested in this topic and you have colleagues interested, we sent everyone a final reminder email for today's webinar about 15 minutes ago. In there, you're going to find a link to the registration page. So it's in the form of a bit.ly. Grab a copy out that bit.ly, Slack it, email it, text it over to your colleagues. They still have plenty of time to register. Come on in and join us live. But if they can't make it live, today's webinar is being recorded. It will be available on demand. And we're going to send you a link to that on-demand version later this afternoon, about 3:30, 4 o'clock. So if you have to leave early, you can always come back and watch the recording at your own leisure. And if you have colleagues as well who can't make it during this time, they can catch it on demand. When we do webinars like this, we often get requests for the slides, and we've made the slides available. I'm going to tell you right now, they're pretty rudimentary and more related to the topics being discussed than necessarily conveying information. But if you want a PDF of that deck, we've made it available to you in the event resources area. You'll see event resources down there on the left side of your screen underneath me, where you also see the question tool. I'm going to point out two other really good resources in there that I just recommend. One is the Adweek webinar calendar, www.adweek.com/webinars. You can see what's coming up on our webinar calendar. Got a lot of, in there you'll access all upcoming webinars that you can register for, as well as all on-demand webinars that we've done over the past year. Check that out when you're done with the webinar. Sign up for an upcoming one. Lots of good topics on things that I know you're going to be interested in. We have several coming up in June, really focused on measurement, which we know is a really important topic for so many marketers these days. We want to point those out to you in particular. Also there, you're going to find a link to the Adweek resource library, which is, well, it's adweek.com/resource-library, but you've got that direct link. In there, you're going to find guides, white papers, other things that you're going to need, again, really for your information that's going to help you be a better marketer on everything going forward. So we do recommend that you use that and head on over there again, when you can. Let's move on to today's webinar. And just very quickly, I'm just going to toss up this speakers slide, but let me introduce the speakers to you. First off, we are very happy to be joined by Casey Hamlin, who is the head of marketing sciences for North America over at TikTok, where he really helps to build advertiser value through, well, high quality measurement. Here we're continuing to talk measurement. And before he was at TikTok, he worked in retail and media, helping to build on ad effectiveness analytic capabilities at a number of large US brands. And from our sponsors at Foursquare, Peter Greb, who is VP of Partner Solutions, where Peter works closely with the 500 plus media partners to ensure that their clients have appropriate attribution tools to measure and evaluate their ad campaigns. He's got over 2 decades of experience, both from the agency and the attribution solutions side, that he brings into his role. And they are also going to be joined by Maya Beatone. Maya is in the marketing team over at Foursquare, and she will be moderating the conversation between Peter and Casey and bringing some of that. So without further ado, and please bear with me here because, well, this is a new platform that's been done, and so it's just going to take me a hot minute here just to set up this layout. There we go. Welcome to all of you, and I'm going to head off camera, and Maya, over to you to move things forward.
Thank you so much, Stuart. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We're very excited to have you on. As Stuart mentioned, I'm Maya Beatone. I'm Senior Manager of B2B and Partner Marketing at Foursquare, and I'll be moderating this awesome conversation today. Quickly, for those of you who don't know who Foursquare is, we are the industry's leading geospatial technology platform. We're powered by machine learning and privacy-first insights. Our tech helps businesses make smarter decisions and build more engaging customer experiences. So we're very excited for today's conversation. With the upcoming summer games, today's speakers are going to talk about how brands can best capitalize on this unique opportunity to authentically align with a worldwide fan-fueled event and how they can measure the impact of their advertising to understand which campaign strategies drive real growth and revenue. Now let's introduce our speakers a bit more. Casey, can you kick us off, please?
Sure thing. First, I'd like to give Stuart a shout and Adweek. They do a really great job of prepping you for these things. So I feel like if I screw up, it's really on me here. I'd also like to thank Maya. She's also been a huge help. So thank you, Maya and Foursquare, for giving me this opportunity to talk a little bit with my friend Peter here. So my name's Casey. I oversee North America measurement at TikTok. My team is really designed to help advertisers find sort of the measurement information they need to evaluate their TikTok investments, whatever that might be. So for some advertisers, that's relying on a lot of our first-party measurement solutions that we've built and are in the process of building, but we also rely on an entire ecosystem of incredible third-party measurement partners to best service our advertisers. And Foursquare is absolutely one of those key partners. And so I'm honored to be sharing this webinar stage with Peter. And with that, I'll turn the mic over to Peter.
Casey, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here today. And I also want to thank Maya and Stuart for hosting and moderating this webinar today. My name is Peter Greb. I'm the VP of Partner Solutions at Foursquare. In my role, I run the team that supports all of our 500 plus media partner customers to help them get the most out of our location-based products. And then for TikTok, this is primarily helping them perform their best on our premier measurement product, which is Foursquare Attribution. Foursquare Attribution measures in-store visits and incremental visits after ad exposure. And TikTok is one of our premier partnerships, and I'm thrilled to be on this webinar today with Casey. So again, thanks for joining us. So I'm going to hand it back to Maya and get us started.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. Now let's dive in. Peter, just to set the stage a bit, can you share a little bit more about Foursquare and specifically the importance of measurement? Why is measurement more critical than ever?
Yeah, at Foursquare, we believe measurement is critical because it helps you understand which campaign strategies and media channels drive real growth and positive business outcomes from your campaigns. In a recent study, Forrester determined that enterprises can realize up to ROI of up to 500% if you're using Foursquare Attribution to measure your ad campaigns. And this is proving that properly measuring your campaigns can help you make smarter business decisions and best prepare for cultural moments such as the summer games coming up shortly. Now, when it comes to store visit measurement, understanding the basics of how we do it at Foursquare is a great place to begin. So we start by collecting the ad exposure data from our media partners, such as TikTok, and then we match to our attribution panel, which is made up of users who have opted into persistent location measurement. We then observe their visitation rate to the store chain being measured. It could be a QSR or a retail brand, or really any business vertical that values in-store visitation. So for example, if you're a sports retail brand trying to target people that are interested in an active lifestyle such as runners, you can benefit from some of the following conversion metrics we derive from our attribution panel. And these are part of our standard reporting metrics we provide for every campaign. So the most basic is the cost per store visit. This is the media cost for the campaign divided by the total attributed store visits to the retail chain being measured. And a cost per store visit beating the Foursquare benchmark indicates that you have a really efficient media spend. Next up, we have what we call behavioral lift or incrementality. This is the difference in store conversion rate between the users that were exposed to advertising and the expected conversion rate of the control group or the unexposed users. This lift calculation is then used to determine the number of incremental store visits, which is the number of net new visits driven to stores as a result of your media buy. And then finally, we'll get down to the cost per incremental visit, which is a key metric a lot of our customers look at. And this is the media spend divided by the total incremental store visits we had just calculated. Again, Foursquare has benchmarks for all these metrics by industry vertical and by media channel. And we use these for comparison purposes so you know if your campaign is performing well or not. And using these metrics and insights, Foursquare helps TikTok and their advertisers understand the effectiveness of their ad campaigns in driving efficient store visits and which placements and creative messages deliver the most incremental store visits across a variety of data cuts. So at that, I'm going to stop covering all the basics and hand it back to you, Maya, so we can get going onto the good stuff.
Thanks so much, Peter. That's really helpful context. And now, Casey, we know the audience is very excited to learn about TikTok and the summer games. So we'll switch gears a bit. I just have some rapid fire questions for you whenever you're ready.
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. So the first one is, do TikTok users watch the summer games?
Yeah, they certainly do. So we've actually interviewed people this time around. I think the first time in the 21 games, we didn't do this. It was a little bit, I think, surprising to us exactly how many people were tuning in and how much they were watching. So we did a survey this time around to be prepared for it. And I think we found 90% or something of people who, TikTok users are going to watch the summer games. And that's no big surprise. TikTok is really, it's two things. One, it helps, we tend to think of ourselves as a cultural center. And two, we've actually drive incredible sports tune-in through different types of measurement. So, between the two of those, it's really geared itself really well for things like the summer games. And so it's not like terribly surprising that, people are as likely to watch the summer games as they are on their TV at this point. And we see that not only with the summer games, but lots of different sort of key sporting events. But what is a little bit surprising is there was about 20% of people or so that said that they were only going to really sort of watch it on TikTok, for different various reasons. So like regardless of whether or not you are, you're watching on TV, you're watching on TikTok, this presents an ecosystem, an environment, a cultural moment to reinforce your advertiser message on TikTok. In some cases, it extends your media buy to an audience that is engaged with the Olympics, but may not be watching it on TV, but certainly can also reinforce that message.
Sure. I know I'm watching on TikTok too. How engaged is TikTok for the summer games?
Yeah, like I said, like in 21, we just saw this explosion, and the summer games have always been super popular, but on TikTok, that was really like a big moment for us. And we saw an explosion. We're kind of anticipating to see that same type of activity again this year. I think in 21, TikTok was, some of the talk about the games itself, people engaging with it. And that was obviously working at TikTok. It was really fun to be a part of that and experience that firsthand as one of their employees. I think again, what also surprised us is the engagement string, because the Olympics, my whole lifetime has felt like a moment in time. expected. It kind of comes and it goes, right? But we saw an incredible build-up on the Olympics, so like so many stars, so many great athletes, right, that participate, people just excited to see and root on for their countries. And then even after the games, we saw like a huge following, mentions, hashtags, all that stuff, right, following the games for months, after it ended. And so that was certainly surprising to see, and we're hoping we see the same thing again for this set of games.
Awesome. And what types of summer games content are most popular on TikTok?
Yeah, so, the platform changes a lot. So I can only sort of say like what we saw last time, what we think we're going to see again. So first, I do want to mention like our partner NBC, like their content's incredible. I mean, they do all kinds of different stuff for the platform, with athletes, with creators, highlights. So it's really an incredible thing that they put on TikTok that I would encourage everybody to sort of follow them throughout the games for sure. Athletes and creators, whether they're separate or even paired together, like they just tend to get the views on TikTok. There's no doubt about that. But the parts that we didn't quite expect that we saw for sure was like reenactments. Some people are just super clever and funny, and they did all kinds of reenactments of different events or things, a lot of irony and things like that. The parts that I like, just to be a little selfish, is like, I learned so much about like the host country, right? Because there's so many people that like are just taking pride of where the games are at. And I mean, with Paris, like that's going to be unbelievable, right? And so I just think that's going to be seeing parts of Paris that you never saw before and stuff like that. I think it's really going to be a great experience if you follow the games. And obviously the heartwarming stories and athletes and stuff like that is what the Olympics is really all about, right? And so we do have something at TikTok called like the Everyday Summer Games, which we're trying to play up a little bit as a hashtag. And that's like, we're like ordinary people just kind of like compete and funny and create like creativity. Our platform's all about authentic self-expression. So, advertisers can build a unique draw for their brand and stay like top of mind during the summer games, especially on trends and things like that. So both leading up to the summer games and then even after it ends, like this is a way for brands to sort of stay always engaged on TikTok for the games.
For sure. Very, very exciting stuff. Appreciate you sharing that. And again, reminder, feel free to submit any questions you may have in the chat. We can get to them at the end. So thank you, Casey. Peter, we're going to switch back to you. So earlier you shared more about Foursquare's measurement solution attribution. So now I'm curious to learn a bit more about, what are some modern measurement challenges and experiences you face with tentpole events such as this one, and how can people overcome that?
Yeah, thanks, Maya. So Casey makes a great point that today the path to purchase is intertwined with digital platforms such as TikTok, and the customer journey has evolved, allowing brands to meet people wherever they're consuming content, whether it might be on NBC or on TikTok. And this is really important with major cultural events and tentpole campaigns. So at Foursquare, we help brands understand the impact of their advertising by providing them with a holistic view of their customer journey across every type of media channel. So they're able to optimize their investments in flight while the campaign is running across every ad placement. And with tentpole campaigns in particular, these campaigns can be bought across many media channels and can reach a large set of consumers. And Foursquare Attribution has two key features that help with some of these really very large campaigns and trying to measure them. So first, our measurement solution employs fractional attribution, which is a form of multi-touch attribution. So when a consumer sees an ad across multiple media properties within the conversion window, could be social, digital, TV, out of home, the conversion credit is fractionally attributed to each exposure within that conversion window, so we don't overcount the store visits, so you're getting an accurate count of how many people actually went into the store, despite maybe seeing multiple ads across the campaign. And then secondly, with our attribution panel, when you're reaching a large segment of the population, We know whether that person you are reaching is already a high frequency visitor to your store. It could be a QSR or a retail store, whether they've never visited in the last 12 months, or maybe something in between. And we're able to produce the store metrics I was describing above across all these different customer cohorts. And this can help you determine which ad placements and creative messages are really driving more visits from your best customers, or perhaps delivering net new customers for you from your campaign. And so this is where our partnership with TikTok comes in. We can help brands measure their audience and various ad placements on TikTok, how they overlap with other media properties, and establish what success looks like leading up to and during the summer games to understand which campaign strategies are driving the most positive business outcomes for you. And so with that, here's a couple questions you should ask yourself to ensure you're getting the most out of your campaign and getting stuff set up. So first, are you measuring all of your media channels on a common measurement platform? This helps give you like deduping, common metrics, things like that. Do you have different sets of creative messages depending on your audience? So for example, are you working with influencers or maybe an athlete from the games? If yes, are you using influencer ad placements such as the community interaction ads on TikTok, which we found drive the highest conversion rate from some of the placements we've measured across TikTok? And lastly, do you have plans to make adjustments in flight, maybe to creative or ad placements to maximize your performance? If you're not taking full advantage of in-flight metrics and performance. Answering these questions ahead of time can help equip you with a tailored and optimized Summer Games campaign strategy that's personalized to your audience, ensuring that you're making the best use of your campaign ad dollars.
Thank you, Peter, and thanks for sharing those questions. Those are very helpful. And now just switching back to Casey, can you tell us a bit about TikTok's success measuring tentpole events such as this one or others, and how to best activate these successful campaigns?
Yeah, I mean, when you have tentpoles, right, there's always that so much goes into it with an advertiser. They put so much love and labor in the marketing community, so you really want to see them do well, right? Everybody wants to see them do well just because of how much effort goes into those. And so that's been like one of the benefits of working at TikTok for me as someone who's evaluating advertising or helping to measure advertising, is that TikTok is really a place where cultural moments and big tentpole moments generally have measured, knock on wood, okay, pretty well on their media buys. And so, and things like that we've seen in gaming with new title launches, that's usually measuring some sort of conversion. Sports events, like there's playoff season right now, the NBA, there's other events that are happening, playoff things. We've seen great tune-in success with those. And then even just TV shows, like for big launches. So whether it's a big launch, a tentpole, new product launch, like these all seem to do well. And there's all different types of products that TikTok has to kind of help give the moment its shine. And that's and so we've seen success, even though they are, they're generally more expensive and they're bigger campaigns, because, to break through usually requires, that level of investment, things like that. So I would say like our partnerships and TikTok sales teams do like an excellent job of, we have like a million options. I'm not going to go through all the options we have to help. Like if you want to participate in the Olympics, I think we have like 100 different options that you can do. Some maybe even with some direct partnerships we have with NBC and whatnot. So the best place to start is with like your local sales rep to get you started, because like those people are just dialed into all of the different features and bells and whistles and things like that. You can participate in tentpole moments, especially like things like the summer games, where I think we have more than usual. As you kind of understand, like, what kind of ad products you want to self-select into, that's where like me and my team kind of step in and try to help figure out how to best optimize for your outcomes. So, I know there's a lot of fancy features and things like that people like to buy, but then eventually, like always about 2/3 of the way through the conversation, they always ask, well, how are we going to measure this, right? And so that's where my team will come in and try to help best optimize the campaign to see the maximum amount of success. So obviously, if your outcomes are foot traffic related, and I'm giving Peter the eyes here a little more, maybe even sales commerce related, then Peter and I are certainly here to help. The one thing that Peter did touch upon is that I did want to mention is monitoring campaigns, is monitoring KPIs throughout the campaigns. That's becoming more and more important to us as advertisers are demanding more from the process itself. So we generally try to optimize mid-campaign as much as possible, depending on how long the flight is. Sometimes tent poles are really short, so you don't have much of a chance to do anything. But if you do, you certainly try to take advantage of that. But then, usually following the campaign, we do like a full wrap up, and our teams work together to help provide advertisers like success stories or things to take that they can take onto their next campaigns.
For sure. Appreciate that. And that's actually a great segue for the next topic we'll talk about. But really, this is yet another reason why, we're so grateful for this partnership. So I'd really love to hear from you both next. What has made the TikTok and Foursquare partnership so successful, and where have you seen much of this success?
Yeah, so I'm going to give some props to Casey and his team now. So when we started this partnership a few years ago, we were lucky to work with Casey's amazing team at TikTok that was willing to dive into our attribution product and learn the details of how to work with it and how to speak to it with their customers. And so with his team, we've been able to expand our partnership across verticals from QSR to retail and to many others where store visitation is an important conversion metric. We've measured and analyzed hundreds of campaigns together, allowing us to understand which strategies work best on TikTok and how we can optimize based on historical performance and set up campaigns for success from the beginning, and how we can work together to see continued success. And I wanted to touch on one thing here. So I think one of the most exciting analyses we've done recently was regarding TikTok's new video shopping ad launch. So as TikTok rolled out this new ad product, we worked with them to understand users' visitation after seeing one of these ads and how effective they were at driving behavioral lift. And what we were able to prove out was that these new video shopping ads are delivering behavioral lift 88% more frequently on campaigns than the Foursquare retail benchmark, which frankly is pretty remarkable to see, particularly for a new ad product like this.
Yeah, like when I saw those initial numbers come through, Peter, I'll tell you, I took a double take, because your measurement system is really important. So many advertisers use it to help evaluate. And we were sort of clawing at small improvements consistently. And then when you have something comes along like that, where we're not only seeing like strong lifts, but we're just seeing such a huge jump in the consistency and in the amount of times we're seeing behavioral lift. I think it's like up to 80% of the time we're now seeing behavioral lift on our retail campaigns. That's like a remarkable number compared to your benchmark. And I knew like our product team was doing something right. And at TikTok, we're moving so fast to launch so many products. Like to be able to give my product team this story internally was like, not only was it great for our advertisers, but just great for morale inside our house to see that our products are working so effectively. And this product wasn't even built with the intention of driving in-store or offline store visitation. But we've actually even like confirmed this through multiple measurement sources, because I got people asking me, well, is this just a Foursquare thing, or so it proves having multiple data points agreement for any of the measurement people in the audience. You guys know that's always a good thing to have, and so it's been really great to share this run with you and learn and have all these different learnings, and be able to prove this. So not only does this data point, I feel like, help us prove that we can drive offline store visitation, but online as well. And so thank you, and thank you to the Foursquare team for all the help and the support. And I know we're probably going to take some Q&A here in a minute, but Peter, I did want to thank you for your team. I think you mentioned we've done hundreds of reports. So God bless your client service team. We're keeping them very busy. I know we have a lot of asks. We're very needy. So in a public setting, I want to say thank you to you and the team for all the great work that they've done. But the one thing I wanted to mention is, like, the sign of any great team is about improvement. right? Showing improvement over time. And even if you throw out this VSA thing, which has been great, right? But we've seen, I don't know, like a 50% improvement in a lot of those KPIs you mentioned at the beginning of the call, in terms of seeing lift and driving a higher lift per study. And that's a big credit to you and the team. And so from 2022 to 2023. So thank you. And I'm excited for a strong 24.
Thank you for those kind words. And my team very much appreciates it. And I do know that they really, really enjoy working with you and your team and on all these different TikTok campaigns.
Thank you very
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you both so much. These insights were incredible, and we hope that they were also insightful for the audience too. We're very much looking forward to the summer games and the next Temple event. So it's been a pleasure learning from both of you. Thanks so much for your time. I'm going to pass it back to Stuart now, and he's going to lead us through some Q&A from the audience.
All right. If you can't hear me, let me know, because I think I turned mute off. Thank you. And while we're in the Mutual Admiration Society, thank you all again. Really interesting presentation as we go through with this. We do want to get to some audience questions, and we've got a good number already queued up, but I want to invite our audience as we get to Q&A. If you have a question for our speakers, just use the question tool you see on the left side of your screen. We're going to get to as many as we can in the next 10 minutes or so. So again, submit it if we don't get a chance to get to your question. And I'm just going to be transparent. We're not going to have a chance to get to all the questions that come in, but we're just going to find a few select ones. We always forward the questions over to our speakers, so there's an opportunity for an offline response. So don't hesitate to ask. You'll get a response one way or the other. With that in mind, a couple other quick reminders here before we get into these questions. One, today's webinar has been recorded. We're going to send you a link to that on-demand version when it's live, 3:30, 4 o'clock this afternoon Eastern time. Feel free to share that link with your colleagues, right? If you think they're going to benefit from some of the information that's being shared here, and especially if you've got something that is going to be looking to drive some of that foot traffic and that real world traffic that we know digital media now is pretty critical for. So share that with them when you get it. Better yet, have them register. They'll get a link as soon as the webinar recording is live. Also, head into event resources if you want a copy of today's slides, which, speaking of which, I'm actually going to take them down because we don't need to see that topically as we're here. But, there's going to be a couple links in there, including the links over to some of those Foursquare sites. So if you download the slides, they should hot link directly over to those pages. So you should be able to find them pretty easily. You'll find those in event resources also with a link to the Adweek webinar calendar and the Adweek resource library. And, self-servingly, please check those out. Let's get into questions here. I know we've got a lot of them. And of course, Casey, they're just about all for you. But let's sort of go in. This question I thought was pretty interesting, and that is, people understanding sort of what I want to say is some of the more niche audiences on TikTok, right? The blank talk audiences, right? Plant talk. I know they're much obviously more refined than just people who own plants, but that's one that I know of automatic, right? But as you think of like those smaller niche communities and audiences on TikTok, what are some of the ways that you can start to connect with them leading up to a tentpole like the Paris Summer Games, right? The event that shall not be named. Any tips that you can recommend for brands as they do that, as they go forward?
Yeah, this is it's a good question. This question is usually part of like, if you ask this to one of my measurement partners, they're going to ask you 1,000 more questions, right, to try to help figure out sort of the root cause of the cause. So I'm going to kind of lay out like a couple of things, right? One is like, we have all kinds of audience targeting tools, right? So you can like upload your custom audiences. If you have like very niche audiences and you want to just try to do a match on your sort of your customers, we have all types of like interest targeting, because TikTok's more of like an interest graph, than a social graph. So like, we have different interests that you can specifically target to help try to find some of these niche audiences. And so there's different ways you can audience target your way to sort of getting after a group of people that you feel like are sort of the most relevant. The second piece is, like creators, it's no secret, is a huge part of what we do. And, we don't walk around with signs on us saying we're part of like book talk, like there's that, that community is built by people who have interests and followings and passions that are shared. And so the easiest way to find them is through the curator of that, right? Which are people who make TikToks regularly and share that. So, we have all kinds of creative tooling that you can access those people if you can't do it yourself. There's all kinds of ways to get a hold of creators nowadays. We have a bunch of products that we can do all of those kinds of things to help you do that. So there's audience targeting, there's creator targeting, there's all this stuff that our product teams are going crazy about to try to get after. And all of those things measure well. Like if you do that, a lot of those things measure well. Okay. But the second part that I'll kind of say a little bit about TikTok, which is it's just an awesome tool for discovery. So like, if you make great content, it will be seen and your brand can make an impact. So, a lot of our campaigns are broad targeting, right? And that made me very nervous as a measurement person to start, especially having dabbled in the retail media world where things are very targeted. It's about targeting the right audience and measuring those people. But we've seen generally, even on broad targeting, to see a lot of success for brands because just being like a full screen video platform, the ads are persuasive and they drive a lot of impact. And so, a full funnel approach is always recommended. So if you want to get niche, you want to try to find those people, audience targeting, creator targeting. If you want to gamble on yourself and the creative that you've built, then I would take a run on a broader audience and let it ride. Yeah.
And as you were talking about and thinking all about that, it suddenly reminded me, and of course I'm going to, not anything you need to respond to, but this is the first games that's going to have breakdancing as a medaled sport. And if there was ever anything that aligns with what we think of when we think of as TikTok, even if it is the stereotype of what we think of when we think of as TikTok, I don't think you could end up with a clear connection.
We had no influence of that I know. Yes, I'm not sure. I don't think that was TikTok sponsored.
That was 8 to 12 years in the making. Okay, as any time a new sport comes through, but let's just know that that's going to be something that people are always talking about, the new sports that come through. But another question on, as you think of tentpoles and that's going on here, Casey, and that is, the tentpole exists, right? We've got 2 weeks blocked out in the middle of summer that this is the point of conversation. But we know, again, when we think of all sorts of tentpoles, right, from that big football game, right, we're going to just go right to that, to the Oscars, to all of the things that are sort of one shot. The challenge for so many brands right now is, what do you do afterwards, right? How do you continue the momentum that you built or potentially built around the tentpole and get a long tail to that? So with the Summer Games conversation, right, does that sort of continue, right? How do you sort of work that after the games are over? And then what are you seeing from brands leveraging these sort of post tentpole opportunities on TikTok?
Yeah, and some of it's I don't know yet. We don't totally know because the games, like you said, this breakdancing thing that you just mentioned, that could become a phenomenon, right? And that kind of conversation, if there's a star, right? We don't know who this person is yet, but there may be some star that all of a sudden breaks out. You'll have all these kids, people across the world emulating these in different ways or building on it. And that's really the heart of TikTok. And so, I can't exactly tell you how some of these things will unfold, but I will tell you there'll be moments in the Olympic Games, whether it's athletes that become superstars from their charisma or just the fact that they won in an extremely challenging environment, All of these types of things will start to lend itself to TikTok. And that's why I mentioned earlier this like everyday summer games, like because, people challenging the summer games are on. So people are challenging each other in the yard doing something that's, something in their family. So there's all these different ways, but, people want to keep talking about these events afterwards. Like we saw so many views, hashtags, like it's such a high volume of engagement. And this allows brands to kind of tap into that to follow the trends. And so we actually have all kinds of APIs that you can access to help you kind of understand the different types of things people are talking about and leveraging. And I would encourage brands to talk to their client service reps, figure out how to get access to those and figure out how they can sort of partake in that conversation, because it's not a conversation that we're having now, but it will be once the event ends. And I would encourage brands to lean into that to figure out how they can best support their own brands.
Right. So it's, during that time, look at the storylines, look at what's emerging, look what people are talking about, look for ways to leverage what I'm hearing from you, look for ways to leverage that post-event to really understand, right, the impact on culture and ways for the brands to ultimately interact with that, target on that, understand the audiences, and move forward, because there are cultural discussion shifts that occur during and after an event like this.
Absolutely. You got it.
Good. Got it. Good. Peter, don't want to ignore you. And, a question did come in of trying to understand, right, the Foursquare and areas of media. So what other types of media and categories can people be looking for Foursquare as part of their measurement strategy within, right, beyond what we just talked about today?
Yeah, for sure. So we work with, I think probably mentioned this, over 500 media companies, and we're regularly adding in new partnerships. Per that prior discussion, I'm going to have to see if there are any breakdancing websites that we can add to our partnerships list this summer. There probably are some out there that we can measure. I'm going to have to do some research. But the media categories we measure include digital web, in-app, audio, social. We can measure out of home. A lot of people don't know we can measure out of home, but we can do both static and digital out of home ads. We can measure linear TV, OTT, and also streaming TV. So virtually any type of media out there we can measure. And we really pride ourselves on measuring all forms of media for all types of campaigns, whether it's for a typical promo campaign or one of these large tentpoles like we've been talking about. And then there's one last thing I wanted to touch on today, as Casey alluded to earlier. Later this year, we're going to be adding in some new metrics to our attribution platform. And those are going to be including in-store transactions, not just visits, but in-store transactions, transaction lift, total purchase amount, and purchase lift. And more to come on this later in the summer. We're going to be chatting a lot more about those additional metrics coming soon.
Great. Listen, I'm looking at the clock. It's 1:45, and so we're getting to the end of our time, unfortunately. I know there were a number of questions we didn't have a chance to get to, so to the audience, those who asked those questions, just to reassure you, we will forward those over to our sponsors and our speakers today, so there's the opportunity for an offline response to all of this. Just some final reminders again. 3:30, 4 o'clock today, you're getting a link to On Demand. You want the slides or you want access to the Adweek webinars, go into the resource area. You're going to find, again, link to the slide, to a PDF of the slides you can download, a link over to the Adweek resource library where you can go and get more information on all the topics that we're talking about today. And again, see what else is there from some of, again, things that we've produced at the Adweek branded content studio, but also things from our partners, white papers, things like that. The Adweek webinar calendar, which there's a link to, adweek.com/webinars. See what's coming up. Join us on an upcoming webinar. Check out an On Demand. Again, let me thank our speakers today. Again, Casey and Peter, thank you so much for your time and your insights today. And Maya, I know you're off screen, but thank you again for holding this conversation. I want to thank our audience for taking time out of your busy day, and we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming Ad Week webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you.